This is a reverse BOLO.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go.
Well, hello everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I am in a surprise place. It's a surprise to me. I had to do some filming in a little town in Kentucky and then head out for the Portland, Oregon Antique Show yesterday. And I had to pick some stuff up from a client, and somehow that ended up with me coming through Iowa unexpectedly. I have not been to Iowa since I was a little kid, and I'm sorry to any viewers here who would have liked to have met me. I didn't expect to be here. But I'm going to show everybody what I see because I'm in a really neat looking place. This is the Czech Village in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Now, I had no idea that Cedar Rapids was the center of a big Czechoslovakian community in the 19th and 20th centuries. And there are a lot of people here descended from the Czechs. And a lot of them came here in the 1850s and on. Partly because they worked in the meatpacking industries here, and partly because there was a lot of oppression. It took Czechoslovakia until 1918 to be recognized as a nation. Now it's recognized as two nations. The Czechs and the Slovaks are, in fact, different groups. Look at this neat painting. She looks so much like an Alphonse Mucha. Czechoslovakia is where Bohemia is, and so we are going to see some things that are truly boho, and we're going to see an antique mall down the block here. I'm hoping that they might have some great old Czech things that I really like the glass and the painted pottery, and possibly even some nice Czech jewelry, so we're going to see. So it looks like we've made it to the antique mall, and I see vintage furniture and home accessories next door, so this should be fun. Across the street it's the Sakura Bakery, which I understand has been there in some form for about 110 years. Look at that pretty calendar in the middle. Standard service satisfies. 1931. That's really neat. I like the fact that it's been framed so you can really use it as a wall display. The Treasure Princess, she's called. From a painting by Eggerman. I'll have to get familiar with him. He's not a pinup artist I knew, but isn't she beautiful? $575 as presented. This sign would have indicated that it was okay to go to a farm and ask them if they had produce or meat for sale. These stringed instruments are things that originally heralded from Central Europe. This looks like it's from about 1910 or 20, $90. For our fans of opalescent glass, this nice little blown late Victorian piece would be cute, but look in there where it's ground. That means it was supposed to hold a stem. So if this was the base of an epergne, so that is incomplete. I see a piece of glass I like over here. Let's take a look. This is Colony. This was designed by Wayne Houston, the Antigua line, and he did it right after he left Blanco in 1963. It's $49. That seems like about the right price for that piece, but it's a neat design. Of course, I have a hat thing, so I think these very interesting sequined hats that are part of the folk costumes are really something interesting. And this one is set with garnets. That's the reason they have it priced at $400. But I have to imagine that that's, well, one of a kind, but also a style that wouldn't have been done too terribly often, except for very special occasions, because look at the amount of detail. Absolutely boho too, right? Now, there is some nice stuff in here, but it's not a very big store, so we're going to go look and see what we can find, and then we might head next door and check out what they've got at the Vintage Home Furnishings. They say this cranberry glass has just come in. This all looks like 1980s and 90s. Some looks like it might have been offshore at the time, but this little piece here has its tag. And this one is Kanawha. And that's neat to see because they didn't do a lot of cranberry. This is late in their production. It's neat that it's got the tag. $27 on that. See, only $25 on that. I mean, they're not pricing it like it's wildly old. It's certainly not Victorian. This piece, I believe, is Pilgrim. Yes, I recognize the bottom. That one's $19. This one's probably also Pilgrim. That looks familiar. But a lot of these other pieces could have been made in Canada, could have been made in Italy. This is cute. This looks like tonneau. A very little piece. Does not have a signature. I like these timers. These would have just been basic things. Gilbert, that's who made the erector set, but these would have been basic things that they would have used in kitchens. $20 on that. Now this is cute, a child size folding deck chair, $35. I don't see that size really ever. That's maybe the first I've encountered. Every time I hear somebody say that it doesn't matter if things are reproduced, I think of RS Prussia. This is a genuine RS Prussia bowl from about 1910. It's transferware with some hand painting and screen painting on the outside. It's a very pretty piece. They did rather elaborate molds. This is the correct mark. The spacing is right between the R and the S. The colors are right. There are fake marks of these. Fakes were made in the 1990s when the prices on this bowl would have been somewhere around $100 more than the $45 they're asking for it now. Reproductions killed the market for RS Prussia. And it's really a shame because the original pieces are quite beautiful, and I have to say for $45, that's an awfully pretty centerpiece bowl. This is an interesting picture next to it. This would have been about 1910s. This is for a washstand set. It's a little taller and more graceful than they usually are. And I like the big orchid-like flowers. It does not have any sort of signature on the bottom, but it looks European to me. Another thing that is not as valuable as it used to be, but that one's actually rather elegant and could be by itself without the bowl, where it wouldn't take as much space. It's $75. This little bluebird is holding a candle votive. That's a little different than I've seen. Looking hard for that signature, not finding it. Oh, maybe there. Yes. $19.91. I think I'll take that for that price because people are interested in these, and that one's a little different. Well, this space is chock full of salt and pepper shakers, but I have to say these don't particularly excite me for the most part. I do see a couple that are interesting, maybe. This Japanese set, but he did not go with a lute. This is trying to look like the leek, also Japanese. It's nice that it has the little bale and the beehives. For $5, that's really fairly reasonable. When you have a piece that has a caddy like that, and especially because we have beekeepers in our midst. Unfortunately, that little guy's wing is broken. Rinconada, $12.95 each or 2 for $20. If any of these are discontinued, that might be a good deal. There's the Treasure Craft smiley face salt and peppers. Those are hard to find, and if his little face was painted all the way black still, I would definitely get those. Here we go. Now we're seeing some original pieces from Czechoslovakia. These handmade dolls are interesting. The one on the right, I think, has got a great folk costume, priced at $100. The one on the left is priced at $225 and says it's a wooden doll made in Czechoslovakia. You'll see a lot of grinders. This sort of kitchenware was definitely made in the region back around 1920. Once they got their independence, there was a lot of manufacturing there. And so a lot of items came to the United States from Czechoslovakia. They had great style, and they tended to be just a little less expensive back in the day. This print shows Slovakian folk costumes. It's nice they captured this before a lot of those countries really modernized. This is $85. It's a special interest piece, but I think $85 is a very good price for it. It's rather large, about 30 inches by 20, I would estimate. This was the first president of Czechoslovakia in 1919, Masaryk. Look at this neat crucifix with all of the carved detail. Now we're getting into what I think we would consider Bohemian in a boho way from a decorating standpoint. All of that detail and work, $75 on that one. They also did a lot of pyrography. That was true also in the mountains of Poland. It seemed to be something that was done in that region. These are interesting because they're Slovak made or Czech made, that says. And some of them are in the language, because a lot of people here kept the language for a couple of generations. That's why this area was Little Bohemia. They actually did separate them from the people who had come here from other places for a while. This is a really neat piece. It's a little damaged on the frame, but this is a three-dimensional prayer box made in Czechoslovakia. Because of Mucha and other influences in the region, there are lots of Art Nouveau influences in the design, as well as certain types of art that look like WPA art, or things we would associate with Spy magazine in England, like these pieces here. They're in the middle of Europe, so while you would see folk items with heavy painting and decoration, typical of the mountain regions there, you would also see things that were absolutely European in their style. $65 for the spice cabinet. I think these are rather interesting. I especially like the one again with the pyrography and the grapes in the middle. And that one is priced at $65. I have to say that seems like a pretty good price. I could see somebody who had a winery using that. The one on the left here is even more tempting because it's only $27 and it has this interesting undulating edge. Something that somebody crafted themselves. $85 on this crucifix. And they also seem to have a lot of other textiles. Textile making was a big thing in Czechoslovakia as well. Well, how fun to get to show something that reflects the heritage of an area. I was not expecting to see this, and it's exposing me to things that I've never experienced in an antique store in the United States before either. So this is a lot of fun. If you're enjoying it, please do click that like button. And if you subscribe, you can click the bell to be notified of future videos so you won't miss any. Vintage Smurfs from 1981, $13.50 a piece. You knew this day had to come, but boy, there were a lot of them. There's an old Czech glass perfume from the 30s. It'd be nice to find some in better shape than that. A whole bunch of vintage Eggerman glasses. These are Bohemian cut to clear. It's done in the style that was done all the way back in the late 19th century, but these are pieces that are going to mainly be 20th century vintage. And you see prices between $75 and $185, depending on the size and style of the decanters. And this is fun, all of the Czech puppets. These seem to be in the $20 range, roughly. And then some of the larger ones, as much as $165 for some of these that were done for professional troops. A few more folk dolls, and then here's a nice luster set. This one seems to be in great shape. It's hard to find these without missing stoppers, broken joints, missing canisters, but this looks pretty complete. They also made a lot of salt boxes back in the day in Czechoslovakia. This one's $35. That's a pretty reasonable price for being nicely painted. And here is an entire set from about 1920. These are all done in English. They also would have done them in Czech language as well. $165 for this set. That may be hard to see with the black backlighting. And then here's another set with the sailboats. Now, if you're looking for modernism, this is a neat piece. Ladislav Oliva, done in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Bohemian glass definitely has moved with the times, and there's a lot of nice modernist glass being made in Czechoslovakia now. Now, these are mostly wall plates, and I prefer the pictures and the dimensional features, especially with the strong deco painting. But this gives a good example of the bright, happy, fun colors that you see in a lot of early to mid 20th century Czech-made pieces, especially the ceramics and the painted wood items. And then this mirror, again, wood carving is a big deal. It definitely connects into the Black Forest traditions in Germany and to the traditions in Poland to the east. Now, these are a lot of mostly newer pieces, a lot of lodgeware, but boy, that's good quality too. It's just that it's still being made, so it's not the big high price of the vintage pieces. Not yet, anyway. That really cool Deco Revival table lamp from the 70s is $135, and that's definitely what I'd put on it if I had it in Florida. Now, I usually avoid center-handled things, but that's Ruby Fenton Hobnail, and it's $12.50. Ruby was more expensive when it was new, and I think that's a pretty reasonable price. And with the Fenton convention coming up for me at the end of July, I'm definitely looking for fun pieces that are accessible, because I'm hoping and expecting to pick up some artware that will be very expensive, and I'd like to have a little balance for people coming there to shop. And yes, these vintage baseball caps are becoming collectible. Some of the foamy ones from the 70s especially, look for Made in USA. Condition is important. Age does matter as well, so if you can find labels that you know date back to the 70s, you're going to likely get a lot more money. Now on this wall, they've got their older Griswolds and Wagners and things, and Favorite. Their prices are not cheap, but most people who take this much time to do a display of this know what they're looking at, and that's why they're willing to season and present them, because, you know, a retail customer who wants one will buy one at these prices, and it's ready to go. Little sets of dice sell. I've mentioned this before. These are the little ones that have numbers on them so that you could punch numbers into the bottom of something, like a wooden form, for example. These are pricing about $35 per set. They look corroded, so you think, oh, these must be old, maybe they're 70s. Well, there's Made in India on the bottom. It's just the way they rough up the finish to give it the appearance of being vintage. So this is a reverse BOLO, meaning be on the lookout and don't buy them if you're into antiques and vintage. I always enjoy these carved vintage smoking stands from Germany. This one's $28. They're from the 30s. Even the Scotty has a pipe. I see a vase here I think might be interesting. It has threading, which was typical in the 1980 period. It's unfortunately broken, which is also typical. That's too bad. They have it listed as Czech, but I've seen American pieces certainly with that same threading. Blanco did some, Pilgrim did some. This little pinch face here, probably rainbow glass, I'm thinking. Again, they're attributing this as Czech, so this just goes to show you that lots of people copied each other's ideas at certain times. And now that I look at it, it doesn't look like an American form because it pinches very deeply from a very wide point. So there you go. Good to compare things. It's how you learn. That's newer. This is old, but a fairly straightforward pattern that we see pretty often. These are pretty amazing. They are marked $4.25 a pair. You see here that they're signed Haziza. There is our signature right there. They are really amazing, actually. It's so funny that they're at the bottom on a low shelf when they have that price tag on them. These would be just incredible with big pillar candles in a modernist environment. I think they're still really, really cool. Yeah, the garnets are really beautiful, aren't they? Mm-hmm. I really like that one on the right, the pin with the flower in the middle of it.
Oh, yes.
And then the crescent reminds me of one that I think my grandmother got from her husband on her wedding night or something.
So I have a multibite ring that I absolutely love.
Oh, that would be beautiful, yeah.
Get any more in.
Right, exactly. You don't see it anymore. Well, here's another place for us to check out. Czech Village Vintage Market and Supply Company. So we'll see what that's like. This is also apparently one of the hipper places in Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids is Iowa's second city in size, with almost 140,000 people now, so it's definitely growing. Oars for handrails, I approve. I see a great suitcase right off the bat with all these great old 1950s labels on them, and it's $30, so I think this place and I might get along. There might be something worth buying in here. And they're having an anniversary sale, 25% off of regular priced items. How cool! Their first year. Okay, and I have to say this place looks really fun, and it does look like a mix. There's some older stuff, some newer stuff, some retro stuff, but fun stuff. And I definitely see my vintage. Look at this neat cash register. It does not work, unfortunately. That would be a hassle to fix, but it is sure neat looking. Who's Art with Jimmy Carter for $7.50. Lots of
presidential plates done over the years. When collector plates were a big deal, you see a lot of JFKs and Eisenhowers. The sprayer here is old, and I have a few folks who like sprayers. It's $30 though. People have caught on to these. I remember when we had to throw them away because they were still new enough to have toxic chemical in them. It's certainly bright and festive, and it looks great together. You do have to watch your stuff to make sure you're picking out old if you're only wanting old. This is a neat set here. This is old. This is Steubenville in the ivory. See the elephant? Boy, yeah, we had a different idea about things back then, but the set of dishes is nice, and no elephants were harmed in making it. The Amana colonies are not far from here. Probably the most successful of all of the utopic religious-based communal living societies. And even though they became secular, their industries did a lot of amazing things in the mid-century, much to people's surprises, like inventing the upright freezer and the microwave oven. This is a California original squirrel cookie jar. You can tell by the darkness of the glaze and the fact that it just really has a lot of striations, that this is not a Treasure Craft piece. California Originals and Treasure Craft had an unspoken agreement. Treasure Craft would supply the middle of the market, and California Originals would aim just a little bit lower and be the discount version. Well, this is a fun way to repurpose an old kitchen queen. It's certainly bright and vivid, and some of them have sat in barns in years and they just aren't going to clean up any other way. This space is a lot of fun, but it's a few really cool old things in the middle of a lot of newer stuff, and this is how most people live and decorate and sell. In a lot of cases, $15. The red is not a bad color. There might be some money in him. The ones that glow in the dark, of course, are the ones that are worth the most. And yet here, this piece, which is not painted, is only $249. Unbelievable. This era of doll is still doing pretty well in some quarters, and these cutouts with the costumes and accessories, here priced at $12.99, would certainly be worth it if they were in a little better condition. They might even be able to be resold. Someday you'll wish you had kept this poster. Now, this has the look of an Enid Collins, but it does not have the signature of Enid Collins. This is a kit piece, and it's $20 as a kit. Some of these are cute enough to buy, and this one is maybe in there. I do like this one. Well, at $15, I might just take this because it's fun. I want it to say the maker, like Gertrude or something inside of it. Gertrude's one of those old lady names from when I was a kid that now are popular amongst millennials and Generation Y naming their children, so they're all going to come back. Now, because it's 25% off today, I'm going to look at things a little differently. Certain things that I might not think would be affordable will suddenly fall into that realm. These were made in Canada. You can see the mark right there. LaBelle Pottery out of Canada. This is a competitor to Blue Mountain Pottery, doing a similar style glaze. This little piece is nicely formed. I think Blue Mountain's glazes were more subtle and better blended. This would be $12 with the discount, and probably worth getting. I'm sorry this has a crack. It's pretty. It's not as wild as the Czech pottery I really like, but this is a Czech-made piece from about 1930. It's got the marks. They don't always have the marks, so look for the style of painting. This is a cute little guy with the glaze, but nothing I need for that price.
Let's go.
No, it's okay.
Come on.
I'm curious too, I understand.
Come on.
I agree with the kid. There is interesting stuff down here, especially for a little boy, because there's tons of sporting stuff, and maybe even for big boys, because I see some barware. I also see this really neat 1890 Victorian piece, and yes, it's sort of excessive in the way that Victorian furniture can be, but this one's really fun about it. It's got those extra mirrors so you can see all the way around, because your drooping fanny pack has to look great from all directions. This is a shirt that my cousin, who loves Pulp Fiction from the 50s, made. Anyway, it's got these great little doors that open
for display, and yet they were covered in a velvet so that the things inside wouldn't be visible. So I'm not exactly sure what you were supposed to keep there, but I imagine that it was probably naughty things like laudanum and opiates back in the Victorian era. There were a lot of problems with that then. The graining on it is really interesting. I think the handles are good. It's just got enough going for it that at $3.50 and then 25% off today, I have to say, if somebody needed an interesting piece for a bedroom dresser, that would be a great one. Now we've got a little bit of retro going on. The mid-century sofa is $3.50 minus 25% this weekend, and it looks like it would be fairly comfortable, and I love those colors, blue and green. That's very 1974 to me. That's when my favorite soccer team, the Sounders, started in Seattle, and those are their colors because of it. I like the Winston-Salem rack, and let's take a look at these cocktail shakers, although I don't think I'll be able to afford them because this is a hipster place and cocktail stuff sells to hipsters, and I don't blame them. I like it too, but these prices are all where they should be. A lot of, with the discount, $22.50 to about $55 for this Hazel Atlas with the fish. Seems like there's a few things in this little district. Cedar Rapids is turning into a lot of fun. Furniture, antiques, jewelry, home decor. Well, let's take a look. I see right off the bat a European scale. I always like those. It's a 5 kilogram. I like this L. Which tag is the L? There he is. 28. That looks like something out of the 80s.
Oh, I know. I got a white one. Hi, how you doing? Good.
That watch fob with the coins is neat for $50. And I like the little Bakelite elephants too, the napkin holders. Those are neat. Yeah, these are really fun pieces, and I'm very glad to get them.
Good.
Yeah, this place has fun stuff in little cases. I like the cigarette loads. That would have been something you would have sent off to annoy your father out of the back of the comic book. And I'm sure he would have gotten in lots of trouble when his cigarette blew up in his face. I have to say the display is good. I think this is a really nicely put together store, and they have some cool things, and I've got some neat jewelry waiting for me. $169 for this very pretty Bohemian set. The 4 stems and the bottle for $169, and then the other decanter, $165 with 8 glasses. This is a pretty piece too. Czechoslovakian. It looks like 1920s vintage. That interesting crackle base is a holdover from what companies like Weller were doing at the time of the late arts and crafts era. There's an entire tower full of elephants. This is interesting. It says consignment, but I think some of this might be dealers too because of the way it's divided up, and they're not just selling furniture and things. Flat beer glasses for $5 each. If you were near Wisconsin, where that came from, well, you might have a chance to sell those for more. Here's a very pretty little Italian piece here. We'll see what the price is. It has a good label and an older label. And it is priced at $75. And I have to say, with all the color and the control of it, it's tempting at that price, even though it's on the small side. It's about 8 inches tall. This one's got some kitchen going on, including this hand-painted mushroom. Somebody's late 70s. Ooh, there we go, 2-piece. Little place to hide whatever for $6. People like silly, you know, it's part of the fun. Kitsch is definitely something I enjoy. These would have gone with the Hall Poppy dinnerware that was made that matched this pattern. $24 for the cake plate is a very good price. They've been that price for the last 30 years, pretty much consistently. Also dogs galore, and I particularly like this little maroon guy with the spaghetti attachments, and he's only $6. My goodness, well, that's coming home with me.
These Staffordshire dogs, I think, are going to be pretty recent vintage. They're very glossy. Of course, they originally were making these back in the early Victorian period. This is very lightweight. It has a large air hole in the bottom. So this is going to be a pretty new production. I won't say reproduction because I don't think these have ever really been out of production since they originated for any real stretch of time. Now at $50, this mid-century modernist leather chair would be great. It's a good design, it's a known design, except Allen wrenches, plastic caps. This tells you this is very, very, very new. Here's a different kind of hall china with a poppy on it. An orange poppy. This vase has fun color, and I'll bet it's older than we think. This looks 1930s to me, and it is marked Weller Pottery. I did not realize that they had that signature on that piece. These little guys are awfully cute. More elephants. It's an elephant place today. And these are 24. These are 1930s Japan. I think that's actually a pretty good price for such a cute pair, especially because the lid's there. I'm almost tempted, but he's got some staining around the edges that I think might be hard to mask. So I guess I should probably leave them. They're not a bargain price. This elephant down here is 24. He has his very own ashtray to bathe in. How horrible. World's Fair etch on that little cordial from 1893 Chicago. We see these a lot. There's a little glass blowing factory at Jamestown because they were doing things for Williamsburg to sell. This looks like it's Italian spangled glass. I think I'm reading that as $70, so that's staying. This little vase is cute. I'll bet it's Nippon. And yes, there's the Mortimer Brothers mark, and it is priced down to $40. So they're not giving their stuff away in this space, but they know what they've got. Now, we're not really exiting. They said there's a downstairs when you get down here. And I have to say, whew, it smells like something died in the downstairs. I am not joking. This might be a short trip. It's very clean here too, so I have to think that maybe there was some sort of a problem in a neighboring building and it's affecting their building, but oh boy, it's about all I can do to stand to be down here, which is too bad because I see cute stuff I'd like to look at. Ah yes, happy memories of a couple of really horrible estate sales I've done in the past. We had one where a retired antique dealer had died and the spouse became a hoarder and there was an infestation and they had to send hazmat in before they could let us come in to do our job. Whew. But it was a $40,000 sale, so sometimes you just do your best. Like the cribbage board that is done as a battleship. Cribbage boards are something that people collect, and a lot of people made their own at one time, so there are some fun ones. Okay, this should be cheesy, bad 50s sexy humor. Which one of you truckers took my daughter for a ride? Looks like she might be expecting. Oh my, this one I'll just leave to your own interpretation. Cute hats on the wall, but with the smell down here, I am not going to buy anything that is fabric. It's a shame because I see quilt tops and things, but ooh, this is just, yeah, not happening for me. So I am going back upstairs and checking out, but I got a really good deal on some of that jewelry, and I'm very excited about it. I like these 1980s Rosenthal Studio line pieces. This is something when people ask me what's been coming from the 80s, well, this is it. Very good quality, $60 now. I have a feeling in the future we'll be looking at over $100. Well, that was an interesting experience. I bought great jewelry. I can barely smell or see after going in the basement. The stench was so horrible. And boy, the gal working there was great. I mean, everything about the place is terrific except, oh boy, whatever got in there, I bet they can't wait until that smell goes away because, whew. We're going to go past the Czech Bakery, and there's an adjoining area called Little Bohemia.
Here's the front of the bakery. You can tell how worn that step is from having been walked into for over a century. This place says it's having a Thriftmas clearance sale, but it looks to me like this is all new stuff, so nothing I can use. Here's more of it, but I just don't see anything that I need. It doesn't look like anything old in here, except for this. Now I have to admit, I always have liked to buy these faux pearl ties, and everybody shakes their head, and then I sell one, and then they shake their head, and then I buy another one. So I think I'm going to do the same now because it's $1. So I guess I was wrong. There was one vintage thing for me in here. Yard sales are fun that way sometimes. And now we're right back where we started from, so I guess it's time to go. Well, there's not much left in the window, nor is there much left of Manly Junction. But this place in Iowa is where my father was born, along with all of his siblings back in the 1920s and 30s. There is the post office. There is what used to be the downtown. Like a lot of these agricultural towns, this place pretty much was laid to rest in the 1980s. Both the old and new space-age water towers and the grain elevator. Hard to tell if any of this is still in use. I'm actually the first person in my family to visit this place since they left. My dad never came here. No one was left here. His father worked on the Rock Island Railroad. There was a junction here, hence Manly Junction, and that was where the Chicago Great Western Railway and the Rock Island joined. But in the Depression, he was laid off when the railroad went bankrupt and the family went west. It's funny to think that they lived here at a time when this all would have been thriving. This is George the Antique Nomad, inviting you to come along on whatever my next adventure is. You never know where I might go, and you never know where I'll pop up next. So thank you for joining me. Check out the social media and links in the description. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to stop. I'm glad I was able to take you with me, and we'll see all you folks later from some other place in antique and vintage adventureland. Bye for now.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below. Click the bell to be notified when new videos upload. Leave a comment below and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.